Welcome to More For Me with yours truly, Kat Necole. What up, homie? What's going on with you? I pray that all is well this week. Things are pretty decent this way. I find myself getting more sleep these days and better sleep, if you will. So settling in, hoping that that continues to improve. Because, when you get that good sleep, that deep sleep, you hitting all those stages and phases of sleep, that's when your body does what it's supposed to do, heal, repair, renew, regenerate, restore. You wake up and you feel refreshed and you're ready to take on that good day. So that's what I'm working towards here in this moment. What are we getting into this week? Well, how fitting. We're still at the top of the year. Actually, today marks the first day of a 21-day fast that I am doing or participating in with my church, Freedom Church of Bedford, Texas. Shout out to you. But as we were starting the fast today, fasting, prayer and fasting, right? So you give up, abstain from something that you enjoy, primarily food, but in our age of distraction, you can also include other things that might be distracting you from focusing on God. But the point is to remove things so that you can seek God, hear him clearly, make that connection, and grow spiritually. And so as I thought about the things that I would be removing, I began to extrapolate that to other parts of life, right? Before we go right to the point, mild detour, we're going to roll around this good cul-de-sac real quick. Have you ever taken the moment, the time, whether it's a new job, a life-changing event at a job, they call them, where you had to fill out your new hire paperwork, which includes some tax documents? Like literally, I can recall being there a couple times. You get this paperwork from HR and you sit down and you start filling it out and you start looking at some of the language and, kind of look around. Like, I don't exactly know what this means. And one of those things that comes to mind is withholdings. Like when you're going to fill this out, most people have no idea what withholdings means, what you're supposed to put there, if it applies to their life, and how they can leverage it to benefit them in any way, shape, or form. And so it tends to lead to a lot of confusion. So much so I remember first job asking the HR lady, excuse me, trying to be all polite, what does this mean? Like, what do you put here? You got to ask your tax person or something like that. I'm like, what in the world? Because they don't know either. So you have a bunch of people that are clueless and they have no idea what withholdings are and how to leverage them, or how they can be to your benefit or to your detriment, let's say it that way. But I'm not going to bore you with taxes. I do want to talk about withholdings today, though. And so connecting that back to prayer and fasting, I stood in church today and I thought to myself, not just what am I going to give up, but while I'm seeking to grow closer to God, right? My relationship with him is a part of the more that God has for me. The beauty of that connection, to be in relationship and communion with the Father, that's a huge blessing. But before I pray and fast, is there something that God has asked of me, a direction that he sent me in that I didn't fully engage or obey? Is there a part of my life, an aspect that I am withholding from God? And as I began to ponder that question for myself, I encourage you to consider the same. Is there something that you are withholding from God? Things just popped in my head, that song, Withholding Nothing. And that's the way that we want to be. But the reality is you are able to withhold something just like you can from your paycheck. You can withhold something from God, but is it to your benefit or to your detriment? Let's take a look at that. Now, when I think about withholding things, what came to me this year? Part of my focus. Well, first of all, this year is the year of becoming for me. That's my word for the year, becoming. But two areas that are going to be heavily a part of my focus is fitness and friendships. The other two F's that are a part of the 5 areas of focus for stewardship with my business, Stuart Little, but friendships and fitness. So I think about fitness. That's an area that I would say I'm withholding from God, right? It's like, okay, I do get this walk on. Y'all hear me talking about walking, getting these miles in. I'll do that. But you know what? If you know me, you know that there's a frozen custard place that I won't give a shout out because there's no there are no advertisers or sponsors associated with More For Me besides Team Thompson. But literally, I'm like, you know what? It's okay for me to eat that because it doesn't have the same impact as ice cream. So this frozen custard, I'll indulge. And I could even put a little candy in it, even though I don't want to be or shouldn't be eating candy, right? Like, nah, God, I'm not trying to hear that. Yeah, I know how this affects me, but I mean, I've talked about it with you guys before. I'm basically withholding that area. I also realized last year I'm withholding my drive. You're like, that's real specific. It is. Sometimes when I get through making maneuvers on the road, I keep it safe, guys. But still I think about like, man, did God get the glory out of that? Or could I have let that person in? Come on. But there are areas of my life that I know for sure that I am withholding from God. And I wonder if you find yourself in the same position. So we all gather here, right, each week on a Homieship, and we're like, we want more, and we believe that God has more for us. So our life is a journey towards the destination of that more that God has for us. And yes, we'll face obstacles, hills, valleys, mountains, potholes, random $20 bills on the side of the road. You might get to come up, but yet and still, it's a journey towards more. Now, how do we impact our progress towards that destination of more? When we withhold from God, when we partially obey, when we do things our way. I did it my way. So not just what are you withholding, but I think it's also worth considering, what am I withholding? And as I withhold from God, what am I forfeiting? You can't have it all. Your cake and eat it too. Today's a day of cliches. But literally, as you withhold, what do you forfeit? You have something in your hands, something that you won't let go. It's mine. I'm going to keep it to myself. I may hide it or I just may hold on to it tight. But in order to receive what God has for you, you have to make room for the more, right? You have to release something. And sometimes that's your full heart. That's all of you. It may be a sliver. It may be a portion of the pie. Like I talked about fitness and driving, but it also may be all of you. So consider for yourself today, what am I withholding? And if you make the decision to continue to withhold from God, what do you forfeit while you hold on to that area, that thing, whatever it may be? I dare to say, even in my case, and I don't dare to say, I stand firm that even in my case, it's not worth it. So let's work on not withholding and fully engaging and allowing God to come in to help transform and change us into who He has called us to be. That's it for this week, guys. And I want to make sure that this isn't just a like, hey, I did it on today, but this is something that we should revisit with some frequency to make sure that we are open hands, open heart, and fully submitted and surrendered to what it is that God is doing in and through us, so that our journey towards the destination of more is all that He designed it to be. Until next week, guys, I want you to remember that God has more for me. God has more for you. Now let's get it. Take care.